Welcome to another episode of Between Two Dots, where we interview remarkable individuals and try to discover how they are living intentional life. On today's podcast, we're joined by my friend, Gregg Farineau. Gregg is a former pro basketball player in Canada and France. He learned the value of discipline, hard work, and performance. Moving into the service industry sharpened his ability to connect with people and deliver results. Later, as a VP at the Speakers Bureau of Canada, he helped top thought leaders share their expertise and hone the skills of matching talent with opportunity. Now, in his role, a unique combination of skills to consulting world, where he specializes in connecting companies with top-tier talent. His mission is to build bridges between exceptional professionals and forward-thinking organizations. This was a good conversation to connect with Gregg. He is an exceptional person and has had his ups and downs, and it was fun to talk about the journey that he took and some of the interesting self-discovery and learning that he had to go through from both a mental health and a dietary perspective to become and continue to sustain the high performance that he exudes today. Please join me in welcoming Gregg to the podcast.
Gregg, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Where are you taking the call from?
Thanks for having me, Gil. It's always a pleasure to see you. And I'm in Calgary, Alberta, right in the downtown in the Boulevard building, aka one of the frat houses here in the city center.
Yeah. I noticed that there's a guitar in the background, so I assume that you play some.
I mean, if you can call it that, I would say it's more along the lines of 3-year-olds banging on pots and pans and cutlery in the drawer. But we're getting there. Work in progress.
That's awesome. Well, maybe that's a great segue in terms of you're in Calgary now, but where does your story start? Are you originally from Calgary, or where did you grow up?
No, so I grew up in Europe. I grew up in Paris, France, just outside of Paris, France, in a little suburb about 45 minutes outside of Paris. And I have a lot of fond memories. You know, even though I left at 7 years old, I still remember quite a lot. And still have half my family over there. And my dad lives in Normandy, and I have a couple sisters in southwest France. So I go over pretty much every year. Been fortunate and lucky enough to get over there, quite a bit and see my family, visit my dad, who's just turned 89 years old. Yeah, so it's been a interesting journey coming over to Canada at 7, and my dad lost his job in 1990 over in Europe, and so my mom is British Canadian and was based in Calgary initially, and so we came back here, and here we are.
Yeah, well, and do you have any siblings?
I do. So I have, like I mentioned, I have 2 half sisters, which I consider full sisters in France. A bunch of nephews and a niece over there. I think I have 6 nephews and a niece. And then I have a younger sister, 3 years younger than me here. She lives in Ottawa, works for the government. She's a scientist. What does she do? Remote mapping and geological mapping and remote sensing. Yeah. And then my brother just got out of an IT job. He's in hiatus right now. So he's in between careers, but he's in Calgary. And this is actually his very cool story, but this is actually his very first guitar that my brother ever bought when he was 14 years old. It's a Gretsch, Electromatic for those guitar fans out there. And he gave it to me so I could start playing a couple of years ago. And so that guitar is literally it's priceless to me. You could not put a amount on it. It's just so much sentimental value. And the other day, it's interesting. I found a crack in it, and right along the neck. Yeah, and it doesn't separate, but just seeing that, I was devastated because I'm like, oh, am I being too hard on the guitar? Like, what the deal is? And then my brother let me know. He's like, no, if you even drop it lightly, these cracks can develop or whatnot. But it adds character, as some musicians would say, to the instrument. You might see like Metallica. I mean, they have some guitars, James and Kirk, and some of these guitars are just so beat up and scuff marks all over them and everything. And so definitely adds character. But those are so I have 4 siblings, and my brother is the second tallest in the family. I'm 7 feet. For obviously those of you who don't know, I'm sitting down right now. But my brother's 6'7", sister's 6'2", and my sister's in France. I think they're floating around 5'7", 5'8". Different mom. My mom is the tall one in the family. So yeah, we've been blessed, I guess, with the height. Although my head injuries when I was younger and getting tall and hitting my head on doorways, wasn't exactly the best experience. But you learn pretty quick to start ducking all the time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
agile because of that, eh?
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword. Sports cars and airplanes, and more specifically airplane washrooms, are not a good time.
Yeah, 7 feet. Wow. As I mentioned before the call as well too, like I've seen you at multiple networking events. So you're the guy that everyone will see because you're standing a couple of feet above everybody else. How has that been, being like the tallest guy in the room? You were joking about it earlier as like you're the giraffe in the room and people can see you and stuff like that. But like, how actually has it affected you? And how do you take that as being like the guy that everybody sees?
Yeah, really good question. So we'll start it in childhood. I was always the tall kid starting in, pretty much the beginning, grade 1. I was, head and shoulders over everybody. And then moving to Canada was tough for me in the sense of that, you're 7 years old, and for anybody listening out there that's been through similar experiences, you can, obviously sympathize with what I'm about to tell you. But coming from a foreign country to a new country at that age, and then trying to integrate into schools and trying to make new friends, is very difficult if you're just doing that, going from one country to the other and going from one school to the other. My situation was I came to Canada and I bounced around 7 schools before I in my case, dropped out of high school. And so bouncing around 7 schools was, when I look back at it now, like essentially my whole outlook on life is I wouldn't change a single thing, because it's all led me to where I am today, and it's allowed me to be the man I am today and learn everything that I've learned today as a result of the good and the bad that I've gone through in my life. But bouncing around schools like that, being the tall kid, the foreign kid, and at that age, and trying to make new friends every new school you're in was debilitating. And as I got into my teens, I grew up in a community in Calgary called Dalhousie, and I'm still best friends with my childhood best friends from 8, 9 years old, largely due to skateboarding and snowboarding, because we just did that every single day. We were just enamored with those sports and really built, camaraderie between us, and just a passion and a drive that, and a bond that was just unbreakable. And so here we are today, still 30 something years later, still going golfing last week. Like, it's crazy. But to go back to the story, I got into my teens and I had, my friend group, but I, in high school especially, struggled because this is when I really started getting very tall. I was 6'2" in grade 9. In grade 10, I had to homeschool because I broke my shoulder skateboarding. Story for another day, but the doctors screwed up, and they accidentally snapped my shoulder in half when they were popping it back in on a shoulder dislocation and not knowing what they had done. So anyways, I had to have surgery when they realized what they did, coming back from my checkup. But I did homeschooling for grade 10. And then I think in grade 10, I grew about, so I was 6'2" in grade 9. I think I grew about 6 inches, 7 inches in about a year. So it puts me up around 6'8", 6'9" in high school. So then, I got to high school and I just didn't know how to interact with the world. And I really struggled with acne. I had really bad skin when I was a teen, and being so tall and knowing that everyone is staring at me, combined with the fact that I had terrible skin and I was so self-conscious and insecure about it. Everyone was just, I could just see the eyes, and then it was just absolutely crippling. And then combine that with obviously the social anxiety aspect of moving from a different country to Canada, dealing with that when you're younger. Now you go into high school, you're bringing that baggage with you. Now you're super tall and you have terrible skin and very skinny. And it was, for lack of a better word, it was a perfect storm for just an absolute, debilitating level of social anxiety. And, unfortunately, it led me to self-medicate and really struggled with, addiction for, quite a long time, because I just didn't know how to process things. I didn't know how to deal with things. I didn't have the awareness, obviously, that we all get later in life. And that was really the only thing that just allowed me to feel normal in social situations, because I was just dealing with all these issues of being self-conscious and social anxiety. And it just allowed me to show up and be somewhat normal, quote unquote, even though I was, inebriated half the time or 3/4 of the time. It was something that I really had to learn to accept, and I really had to learn how to interact with the world much later. I really owned it. Might be a surprise for you and your listeners to hear this, but I probably didn't really accept and be able to lean into and interact with the world regarding all the attention I always get when I go out until I was probably in my early 30s. It was crazy. And I heard a story. Really, the one thing that changed it, I'm not trying to compare myself to anybody or claim I'm a celebrity, because I certainly am not, but I feel like I know a tad bit of what that's like to have the spotlight on you all the time. Because when I go out, like I know, like, everyone is staring at me, right? Wants to come up and ask me how tall I am and the traditional questions. You play basketball, where do you get your shoes? Like, where do you get your pants? And I heard this story on a famous podcaster. We don't need to mention names or anything, but he was telling a story about a very, very famous wrestler celebrity. I think we all know who I'm talking about. And he was at a MMA fight, and he gets so much attention, and he was having a very intimate conversation with one of the fighters. And it was just a one-on-one, right? Two super famous guys. And then some super fan comes up and just rudely interjects in the middle, trying to take a selfie. And this guy just calmly grabs his phone, very humble, grabs a phone, smiles, introduces himself to this guy, takes a picture, asks him how he's doing, huge smile on his face, not bothered by the rudeness that was, that took place, and cut him off in the middle of this convo. Like anybody else, if that happens and somebody just literally jumps right in the middle of you and somebody else having an intimate conversation, regardless of the situation, anybody's going to step in and be like, dude, what are you doing? The hell out of here. Like, what do you have? Zero social intelligence, no social cues. But when I heard this story, and I was like, to me, it just resonated, because I was like, well, he gets this probably way more than I do. Like, anywhere this guy goes, like, he can't even leave his house without 100 people swarming him or more. And so what I took away from that was, look, maybe instead of me not knowing how to interact with these people that are always asking me these questions like I did in the past, and being awkward about it, and like, 7 feet. And then when they ask me how tall I am, and then I just like wouldn't know how to carry the convo. I was like super awkward. And then I was like, it dawned on me. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should use this as an opportunity to get to know people, make somebody smile, ask them about themselves, ask them stuff about them, be genuinely curious in other people. And that was really the start of, I guess, coming out of my shell, a very late bloomer in my 30s. And now it's interesting because it's crazy to think about, like, where I used to be as a young kid, and now how far I've come in terms of this. Because if you just met me today and you saw me in a room, you'd be like, what? This guy used to be like, And now I just absolutely love being around people. Obviously the attention and whatnot does not bother me. I'm always smiling, genuinely like to meet people, get to know them, regardless if people have, they say stupid shit here and there, and which I have really good comebacks for now that put people in their place if they're being ignorant and rude, which most people are not. 99% of people are not. They're just can't believe they're, like, wow, what the hell is, so yeah, now I've, just leaned into it, and I, just use it to my advantage. And I genuinely like to meet people and get to know people. And it just makes me a happier person because it really has, as my confidence has increased over the years and I've really leaned into who I am and accepted who I am and figured out how to interact with these people in the world in general, just my mental health has just increased at such a rapid pace and made me such a happier person the more I interact with other human beings, which I would argue is the meaning of life in the first place, right? It's all about relationships, and connecting with others is what life is all about. So that was my TED talk. You guys had asked the question.
No,
just rambling on for 10 minutes.
I think it's pretty powerful stuff for sure, man. Like I could definitely relate to like the late bloomer thing that you mentioned as well too. And it is pretty wild when you think about what people think of you now versus like the journey to get to where you are. No one has any idea. And when you actually tell it, like it surprises me as well too. Here you are, the 7 foot, good looking Jack dude that's always around, like polished suits, everyone's swarming, and then you have this history of like social anxiety and all these things that maybe made you question certain things until you leaned into it and you had that moment, right? So everyone kind of has that awakening moment, which is really cool, and sounds like you're kind of using your gift. And we'll get into what you're doing today, but I want to just go back a step because you did mention that you dropped out of high school. What was the impetus to that? And take us through what happened there and what happened after.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I never say proudly. I just say it as I just say it tactfully, as a lot of things that, shouldn't be taken as being proud of or not proud of, or whatever the case may be. But I really struggled in institutionalized education, like insanely. I mean, pretty much my whole life after I moved to Canada, I got straight A's in grade 1. I mean, like everyone's getting straight A's in grade 1. If anyone got a B in grade 1, it's just the teacher not being very nice, right? Like everyone's getting straight A's, but 100%. But I think I really started to struggle in junior high, grasping certain concepts. Mathematics, science, especially, were tough for me. And then in high school, I was just so stressed, and I think there was maybe a couple parts that would play into this. One, being obviously the things I dealt with, social anxiety and whatnot in school, and also making more friends in high school was also an issue for me. But the math and the sciences especially, I just really, really struggled with. And I was just having such a hard time. And all I wanted to do was just get the hell out of school. And I told my mom, I said, look, like, and she saw it too, right? And my parents even incentivized me. They were going to buy my dream car if I graduated high school with a certain grade. And like, I'm a big car guy. I love driving. And I still dropped out, right? So even the incentivization of having which at the time, let's call it, it was a Volkswagen Golf GTI VR6. I'm sure you guys know what those looked like back in 99, 2000. And yeah, I just eventually, halfway through grade 12, I just told my mom, I said, look, I'll work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and like, get me the hell out of here. Like, I don't want to do this. I'm miserable. I'm stressed. I'm not feeling good. I'm like, I do not belong in here. So shout out to everybody out there that can do not only finish high school, but post-secondary. Like, I mean, that's another beast. And I tried 2 times. I went and played basketball at SAIT and UFC. And both times I left, couldn't find anything I was interested in. I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, even the basketball was there, and as much as I loved the game, and just wasn't for me. And so, yeah, I tip my hat to you guys, to anybody that's completed post-secondary, especially, because that is just, something I couldn't do. So yeah, very, very admirable people that can finish that.
Yeah, I think as a society, we've come a long way as it relates to just like understanding different ways that people learn as well, right? And so, back when you and I were in high school, that wasn't necessarily the case, and it wasn't as prevalent, right? So I think inevitably we're not perfect, but then I think people generally have a better understanding of different environments and how people's brains work and that sort of thing too. So you didn't necessarily have the benefit of that because it was just kind of one way. And, whatever it was back in the day, I think you were just doing like, handouts or whatever it is, right? And so that's not necessarily the best way that you may learn and otherwise, right? So, but yeah, I really appreciate you, being open and honest about that experience, because I think that's important. Everyone sees the end product, as Hafiz says, but it's good to be able to rewind back and get some of those details and how you got there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I feel it's important as men as well to, there's obviously been a stigma with talking about mental health and struggles and this and that. So I just feel like now the tide's turned. I mean, it's clear, it's obvious. And so the more guys can come out and talk about their struggles and what they've been dealing with, then it's just going to help it's going to do more for the greater good, as we're able to share and continue to share with each other.
No, absolutely. And I want to give you a shout out as well too. Like, it's not easy to go against the grain as well too and say I don't want to be here. But I think there's a lot of people that will struggle through school and stick it out and really, really hate it. But for you to be adamant, even with the car and basketball and all those other things that are keeping you there, to be like, nah, this is not for me. Like, that takes a lot of courage and guts to be like, this is not a fit, and going out there and doing your thing as well too, right? So I think that, I tip of the hat to you as well too, because you could just stick it out and be miserable, or you can like own your life. And this is literally what the podcast is about as well too, is about that intentional living. You made that choice intentionally to be like, I'm going to kind of pave my own path, and this is not working for me. And against, societal, parents, whatever pressure, still kind of did your own thing. So don't ever sell yourself short on that. No pun intended. But that's pretty incredible. Tip of that to myself on that one. All right, let's talk about. So you drop out of high school and you're like, okay, you're done with it. And how do you? So you mentioned that you tried twice to go into your post secondary, whether it was state or UC. Did you always play basketball, or was basketball kind of the ticket to post secondary after? Like, how did that happen?
No, I fell in love with the game literally right after I dropped out of high school. I signed up at the YMCA in Crowfoot, and I picked up a ball seriously for the first time, and it was just love at first sight. That's all I wanted to do. It was just eat, sleep, breathe basketball. I was just watching videos, watching games, playing 3-on-3, 4-on-4 at the Y. I was there every single day. Started lifting weights, and then I think it was probably a couple months in. I mean, I knew, I was like, I kind of want to see if I can make a career out of this. I thought I was, okay at it and picking the game up, pretty quickly and starting to put on some weight. Cause I mean, in high school, I was 40, 45 pounds lighter than I am today, maybe a little bit more. So it's tough being a skinny, tall guy to put on muscle. It takes a while. And back in the day, it was the old seafood diet. So you see food, you eat it. So that's all I did. I was just shoveling calories down my throat, upwards of, I think I was getting around 10,000 a day for a while there. And so then I was recruited to go play at SAIT, redshirted my first year. That was in the late 2000s. And then second year got injured halfway through the season, herniated a disc in my back, insanely painful. That was brutal. I had to drop out of school because of that as well. And so left there. And then I started working basically simultaneously around that time. And a couple of years after high school, I started working in a nightclub here in Calgary called Tantra. For those of you out there that are old enough to remember Tantra, what a fun time that was. That was absolutely insane. And that really, it obviously didn't help with with the alcohol, drugs and alcohol side of things, working in a nightclub. But I just had so much fun and, making good money. And so I did that alongside school and basketball, and then got injured, continued to bartend restaurants, nightclubs, went to Vancouver, played in a semi-pro summer league out there that was in the Northwest, states and the West Coast of Canada. So that was a cool experience. Came back and then enrolled in UFC for my second go around, figured I should maybe get a piece of paper, and was there for a semester. And I was like, yeah, this isn't, I'm not doing this. And so got out of there and ended up playing in Europe the following year. So walked on as a tryout, walked on south of France, lived in Antibes, great experience. Walked away from, at the time, was my entire life savings in a business with one of my best friends, and I was essentially managing the operation. And he told me, he said, look, if you leave, like, you're going to lose your investment, and I'm going to have to scramble to find somebody to replace you. And it was a no-brainer. It took me 2 seconds to think about it, because I knew that if I didn't go pursue a dream to go play basketball in France, that would be something still to this day that would just eat me alive. And, at the time I walked away from 40 grand, right, which was a lot of money. It was everything I had to my name, and left for Europe by myself with, I think I had $300 to my name, and had a girlfriend at the time. She came over a couple months after and stayed there for a few months. And it was interesting because this whole time, this was about 10 years into my basketball journey, I got to France thinking, like, this is the dream I've got here. I'm going to play for 5-8 years, something like this. And I'm going to have this experience and hopefully make some money. And 4 months in, I was like, no, this is not what I want to do. And I knew I was going to last the season over there and then come back. And essentially what it came down to was a couple of things. Number one, like I mentioned at the beginning, skateboarding and snowboarding from the beginning were huge, and I still snowboard to this day. And I think it is the most exciting, thrilling, adventurous thing you could possibly do on this planet. Like, you're out with your buddies, your friends, you're ripping down the mountain, especially on a bluebird day and -5. And so anyways, I wasn't willing to give that up to play basketball, was about half the reason. And the other half, I was just struggling with the game, to be honest. The European game's a little bit different than it is over here. And there was that, and there was just being a late bloomer and trying to catch up and not having the level of confidence that someone would have when they play a game from 5 years old. Tiger Woods, or anybody that does any sport from a young age is going to have just a natural level of confidence. And so I really struggled with the confidence and the IQ side of the game, not necessarily my physical capabilities on the court, and then combined with snowboarding. So I came back and continued to work in restaurants and nightclubs, shut that down in 2015 after working at Cowboys, which everybody knows Cowboys. And then, I worked in finance, sold cars, just did some random here and there stuff, trying to figure things out. And then we fast forward to the pandemic, and I ended up getting on board with one of my best friends running an agency for professional speakers called the Speakers Bureau of Canada. So this was an exciting opportunity for me. Working alongside one of my best friends, I literally had known, he was the first friend I met essentially when I moved to Canada from France. 8 years old, my next door neighbor, and he took his dad's company over, the bureau and the agency, and got me on board. And I was able to be a digital nomad and travel and work wherever I wanted to in the world, which was a really cool experience. Living in Costa Rica, Bulgaria, Denver, Barcelona, France, Amsterdam, some interesting places, and did that for a few years. And I had a lot of emotional skin in the game, and really wanted the company to do well, and I wanted to do well as well. And I really thought that this was going to be something long term, and I ended up burning out a couple of years ago quite severely. I ended up in the hospital, the Sheldon Schumer, and I was having heart problems, and they ran me through a gauntlet of tests, and everything else was there overnight, and went through severe depression after that. Suicidal thoughts were just, I was consumed by them for the better part of 6 months afterwards. And I really dropped my first F-bomb here. I fucked my brain up like really bad. I had warning signs, ignored them. Alpha mindset, hustle and grind, just power through like a basketball practice or a big leg day. The brain it's not the same. The brain will not adapt the same way that your muscles do. And I had to learn the hard way. So it was a big learning lesson, of course. But as a result, it led me to where I am today, which is being an entrepreneur. Something I've wanted to do for a while, but I just didn't know how or when it was going to happen. And the worst thing that happened to me ended up being the best thing. So I can't look back and say that I wish it never happened, because it's led me to where I am today.
This episode is brought to you by Bloom Benefits Group. Bloom Benefits is disrupting employee benefits by rethinking the status quo. They provide exceptional customer service while saving you money. Bloom offers group benefits and retirement products, health and wellness accounts, executive benefits, life insurance, and disability and critical illness. Available to companies across Canada, Bloom helps clients save money without interrupting current plans. Check them out at bluebenefits.ca.
Young professionals, families, and entrepreneurs. What makes Zelos Investment Counsel different? Our independence, client focus, and access. Zelos Investment Counsel is independent from banks and brokerages, which ensures clients' best interests are served without corporate conflicts. We are fiduciary portfolio managers with a duty to clients that doesn't exist in the brokerage model. At Zelos Investment Counsel, we exist to care for our clients, and every day we strive to help our clients reach their goals. We provide our clients with access to institutional investment managers and sector specialists through our proprietary investment structure. For more information, book your no-obligation meeting today at zelosglobal.com. That's www.zelosglobal.com.
Attention all car owners. Is the winter weather turning your beloved ride into a rusty relic? Fear not, because we've got the solution you've been dreaming of: Crown Rust Protection. Picture this: your car defying the elements, standing strong against rust like a knight in shining armor. Crown Rust Protection is not just a shield, it's an investment in the longevity and resale value of your vehicle. Don't let rust take the wheel. Book your Crown Rust Protection treatment today and let your car embrace its inner superhero. Call now at 403-291-1951 or book your appointment at www.krown.com. Our skilled technicians are ready to give your car the VIP treatment it deserves. Crown Rust Protection, because your car deserves to age like fine wine, not rusty vinegar.
Yeah, 100%. And just taking a step back as it relates to, obviously, we kind of got the conclusion of that last stint with the Professional Speakers Bureau that you were involved in. But what was the activity that you were involved in? It's kind of like if I'm understanding, kind of like a business that's like a two-sided marketplace where you're trying to cultivate relationships and have a roster of speakers, but you also have clients that want these speakers to speak at, and you're kind of you're trying to so were you involved in trying to fill the funnel as it relates to speakers, fill the funnel as it relates to the paying clients, or both?
Yeah, it was both. And so we walked into, just to kind of put what's the word I'm looking for, some context around what I'm about to say. When my friend took the company from his dad over, it was in 2015. He took it over, and it was doing low six figures a year, which is really nothing. And I came in at the tail end of a 20x in a decade. So to say that we were drinking through the fire hose would be a vast understatement. I came into an absolute shit show. But that was okay. I was willing to learn and put in the work, and that's fine. You just got to start somewhere, right? Start at the bottom. And so we walked into already established relationships with 500 plus speakers that we already had on our roster, and relationships that we already had with corporate Canada and the government of Canada. So we already had all these relationships, and the business was growing and getting more and more clients. So yeah, we were responsible for finding the right speaker for the right organization within budget, topic, audience size, virtual, in person, location, right? Everything. And some people are going to laugh when they hear this and be like, no wonder you burnt out. At the time, we were doing about 140 deals a month. So 140 speaking engagements a month across the country. And everything was manual input. We did not have a CRM. So like the amount of work we were doing was just insane. And so each speaker that we would send out would probably, every deal that we would close on a once in a blue moon, like literally once maybe every couple months, it would be 2 emails back and forth. The average deal flow would be anywhere between 20 and 30 or upwards of 50 plus emails back and forth. So every day I'm walking into my inbox, 150 emails, manual input, everything. No automation, no CRM, no integrated systems. It was a nightmare. But I didn't know any different. I had nothing to compare it to, right? It's like essentially my first crack at corporate. This is corporate Gregg walking in, and so I didn't know, right? So I don't know. And then now, knowing what I know now, I'm like, holy hell, like that's insane. I can't believe we were doing that, right? But it was really cool to like learn what we learned. We did a lot of work in Indigenous communities, First Nations. We had Canada's largest professional Indigenous speaking roster. Very proud to serve those relationships and facilitate those speaking engagements on, in First Nations land. So it was very cool to learn, because there were a couple of white guys, right, running this agency. So learning how to communicate properly with especially the Indigenous community was very, very important for us. And we really took a lot of pride in that. It was really coming from a point of, you don't even talk numbers. It's all about how can we serve you, asking important questions. What is the right speaker that we send? We'll figure things out later. We're not here to talk about numbers. It's completely different than it would be working with, we work with the CRA, Forest and Fisheries, Border Security, RCMP, and all the big oil and gas finance companies across the country. Vastly different conversations, those two. So for me to learn this was, really important. And our Bible as well was, for, we're really in communicating with anybody was Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference, which I know you guys know of. Yeah, it's an amazing book. So yeah, I read that one a few times and really helped me navigate, conversations and how to communicate with various organizers across the country.
Pretty incredible experience. You've had a couple of big experiences now working with like best friends, and the first one, you left to go play basketball. Just curious, did you come back to a good friend still? Did he understand, or was that like okay, like you left me in the wind and?
No, we're still best friends. He's somebody since literally 9 years old. So he lives out in Toronto now, but he's
Gotcha.
so we're still tight and and I has to say my business now, Headhunters Canada, I partnered with another one of my friends who's now one of my best friends and business partner, Veronica. So it's that's been an interesting journey of working with my friends.
I mean, sometimes you hear you don't start businesses with your best friends, and things can go south pretty quick, right? I mean, Gilbert and I are pretty good friends as well too. So we started a business, very different because it's like we have our primary, and this is like what we do as the project on the side. It's a little different, but yeah, I can see that being a little sticky as well too. Like, did you guys? Because that correct me if I'm wrong as well too. But did you have equity stakes in these companies as well too, or were you working with your partner, with your buddies for them?
No, I didn't. I was so with the speaker bureau, I was about to become a partner. We were going to have those conversations, and then I burnt out. So that was, I literally had to quit overnight. Like I went into the hospital, and I delivered. The irony in all of this is crazy. I was asked to deliver a keynote 2 months ago at a conference. My very first keynote. I was absolutely terrified, and I was asked to deliver my keynote on my burnout story from running an agency for professional speakers. I'm delivering a keynote, right? So it was interesting how it comes full circle like that. But that was I did good. I did well. Could have done better, but I mean, it was. I don't know if you guys have spoken up on stage, I'm sure, but it's your first time. Wow, like it was crazy. I was doing this breathing technique that the Navy SEALs use to put themselves in parasympathetic within 5 minutes. It's crazy how fast it works. So when I got up there, the mind was racing, but my body was not reacting to my mind racing. my body was just chill. I was just calm and just ready. And then I delivered and everything went smoothly, but it's, it was pretty interesting experience for sure.
Yeah. Congratulations on that. That's huge. It's just, you hear the statistics as it relates to some people that more people fear death than, or sorry, more people fear public speaking than death, right? So it's a real thing. It's like, and so as a result, like actually being able to step on a stage and deliver to an audience of, whatever it is, that's experience that I think very few individuals on earth get to go through, right? Statistically.
No, it's I'm glad I was, but the goal was the whole time up there. I wasn't expecting to become Tony Robbins. I wasn't expecting everyone standing ovation or whatever. I just wanted to try to impact one person in the audience. That was the only goal. It's like, if I can just tell my story and one person comes up and is like, that resonated, thank you for sharing, I'm going through it right now or whatever. Because the goal with the Burnout keynote was just to tell the story so that I could try to educate somebody on the warning signs I had. And at least if I can deviate somebody from going down the exact path I went down, then mission accomplished. And so I probably had like 5 or 6 people come up afterwards that were really moved by it and had a lot of good things to say. So, I mean, yeah, that was a 5-6x on my initial expectations. So there you go.
Killed it. There you go. It's good to set those expectations and come out and deliver, man, and just tell your like vulnerable story. You know what I mean? And it's you've obviously worked in these industries and you've done a lot of that as well too, whether it's been the sales side or whatever. But even hearing you on this podcast, you're very well spoken. You carry yourself well. You can tell the story. You bring us along with you as well too, which is great. And I'm sure if that was your first keynote, that's definitely not going to be your last. You'll be doing a lot more public speaking, which is pretty awesome. 2 things here as well too. Like, I don't want to gloss over like your rough patch that you had there as well too. You did talk about, once you were burnt out, basically you're kind of laying there and you had these like flurry of suicide thoughts for 6 months, and that's a tough place to be. I've been in a dark place for a little while with a previous business, and you had those thoughts, and I'm very lucky that I started seeing a psychologist when I did, because things can get pretty bad pretty quick, and the self-medicating, I can definitely relate to that in terms of using alcohol and stuff like that. Tell us about that time and like what got you ultimately out of that.
Yeah, that was tough, man. That was yeah, that was I don't know. It was it's crazy how things happen all at once. Usually in life there's they say bad things come in threes. Not only did I burn out and was dealing with the mental health side effects of burnout and of taxing my brain in the manner in which I did. I also had SI joint dysfunction, literally right at the same time, which is I can't even put a pain number on it. It's when there's a couple of there's a joint at the back of your pelvis. Sometimes it can destabilize from a number of reasons, and it causes pain on levels that are like insurmountable. Like the slightest movement in the wrong way or going up a stair or something would just send lightning bolts of electricity up my spinal column, like just insane levels of pain. And so I also was dealing with that right when it literally the same week I burnt out, that happened. And so I didn't tell you guys this, but I had taxed my brain so bad, my subconscious mind was associating any screen, didn't matter where the screen was and what was on it, with burnout symptoms. So if I could not look at a phone, any TV, any screen, anywhere for more than 2 minutes without literally getting physical symptoms of burnout and going down into a dark hole again. And so I had to rehab. I'm telling you this because what got me through is I was living in the gym rehabbing my SI joint, because I don't know if the prognosis is the right word, but to fix it, a lot of people are saying you have to, because I was watching, obviously, as you do, self-diagnose on YouTube. And people are saying that you have to get your pelvis fused. A lot of women get SI joint dysfunction from giving birth. You can get it from car accident injuries, whatever. And so getting your pelvis fused, then there's not a chance on God's green earth that I'm getting my pelvis fused. So I went through about a plethora of 70 different exercises to try to fix it over the course of a month. Finally found one that was that I found a little bit of improvement after doing it for 3 days. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this exercise until I'm blue in the face. So it was just living in the gym, being around, people in the gym. I was also traveling a little bit after burnout. I went to go see my dad in France, and then I moved to Bulgaria after that for a couple of months. And so I was in the gym 2 to 3 times a day, rehabbing. And that kept me somewhat sane because I couldn't look at screens, right? So it's not like, oh, well, I'm burnt out, so now I'm just going to watch movies all day or whatever. I can't go on my phone. I can't go on my computer, right? And so I'm like, I have to find ways of keeping myself occupied and getting through this because I'm just dealing with these thoughts, these dark thoughts all day. So the gym was huge, just getting out in the sun, walking around, as simple as it sounds, like just trying to interact with people, smiling at people, just listening to music. At least I could do that. Reading some books, this helped me get through. And, in the dark moments of contemplating, how I would leave the planet and how would I tell people and this, that, and the other thing, like I never tried, but, in those moments, I think one of the main things is, they say what you resist persists. And so I was never trying to not acknowledge the thoughts and trying to suppress them. As weird as it sounds for you guys and people out there, but I just welcomed them. And I was like, okay. And then not try to increase them per se, but just allow them to be there and just didn't try to resist them, because if you resist them, it's just going to get worse. And so just trying to be calm about it and, working on my breathing. I do a lot of, cold plunges and Wim Hof breathing and Buteyko breathing method. I'm big into the biohacking space, if you will. And so, doing those things to try to make me feel better again, just getting out in the sun. But then really the pivotal thing, to your point, if he's a psychologist, really got me through burnout and especially getting back on the screens was EMDR therapy. So for those of you that don't know what EMDR is, it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So I was told about EMDR from one of my really good closest friends. She's basically like a sister to me. She's my best friend's older sister. Went through cancer a couple of years ago and was dealing with everything involved there. And she had obviously known my story with burnout. And so she told me, hey, let's grab a coffee. I need to talk to you about something. So she told me about her experience with EMDR and how fast it worked. Like we're talking like 3 to 4 1-hour sessions. And I was like, what? This, like, you got over your fear of death and everything else that went along with obviously getting diagnosed with cancer. And she said, yeah, she said, Greg, it's scary how fast it works. She's like, it's wild. Like I can't even speak highly enough of it. So I said, okay, sure. I'm down to do it. And so I read one of the books on EMDR, went in to see my therapist. We started, and it's a lot of bilateral eye movement stuff in between thought processes to just dumb it down for you, for anybody out there who doesn't know how it works, but it sounds super simple. It appears simple, but the mechanism, whatever's going on upstairs when you're doing EMDR is insane. Like, I mean, it has changed me in ways that I couldn't even properly like communicate this. It just so powerful on a spiritual, deep level, not only getting me through the burnout and the screen, getting back on the screens, but we started to unpack a lot of things from childhood, because a lot of trauma from childhood will present itself later in life. And you might not, people will say that, but then you think of certain situations we've all had in childhood that were traumatic, where you're like, oh, how could that be connected? But the theory is that it's a giant spider web. It's all connected. And so when you start to unpack something that you might not think would affect this, it turns out that it does affect that. And you're not necessarily expecting it. So we went down a 6-month journey of just unpacking everything. I only went twice a month. After 3 hours, three or four 1-hour sessions of EMDR, I was able to get back on a screen one day for 5 hours. And I think my threshold before this was maybe 1 hour watching a movie in a light-filled room, middle of the day, on night mode with fully dimmed, right? It's in my house. That's how bad this was. This was like 8 months after it burned out. So I was at about an hour. And all of a sudden, I found myself one day, and I just started the business, boom, in front of the computer for 4 hours, no side effects, didn't even register that, that there was any issues at all. And so as we unpacked more and more from my childhood and everything else, I started to notice just these epiphanies and moments of enlightenment, and confidence started increasing, and I just started understanding life at a just deeper, fundamental spiritual level. And just, you don't forget about stuff from your childhood. What it does is it allows you to process it in a way where it does not affect you present day anymore. So it's just something that happened. It's not something that's happening. So now all of a sudden it doesn't affect you. Like, you'd be very surprised, the stuff that comes up that you don't think affects you present day, but then you go through it, and then all of a sudden you're a different person in different areas of your life. You start to look at things differently. You're like, oh, crazy, I never thought that. And I honestly can't speak highly of it. Everyone should be doing it we all have, we all got our shit, right? Like everybody's got 100%. Stuff they're struggling with. If, like I say all the time, if anybody tells you they have their shit together, they're full of shit.
Yeah, I know I've heard other testimonials from people that have gone through that treatment modality as well, and similar stories in terms of just because it kind of unlocks that subconscious level of the mind in a way that you can't naturally access just yourself, right? So you mentioned like biohacking, and I know that you have like specific views on like a diet regimen that works well for you and that sort of stuff. So I just wanted to kind of like open the floor to that, and like what, maybe explaining to the audience like what that looks like, why you think it works, etc., so forth.
All right, I will preface. Thanks for asking, Gil. I appreciate you. I'm going to preface this by saying that this is very unpopular opinion. Most people who are listening to this are going to think I'm completely batshit crazy, out to lunch, have no idea what I'm doing. But I'll tell you my story as quickly as possible, because I know we're probably running short on time. But I had pretty severe health problems after COVID. I got sick. Long haul COVID was the result. I had insomnia for 2.5 years. I will not take sleeping pills. I will do everything in the book naturally to try to fix anything. Like I said, my story of my SI joint dysfunction, which, by the way, took 120,000 reps of one exercise over 6 months to fix. It was insane, the level of rehab. So I couldn't sleep for 2.5 years after COVID. And I was doing everything from cold plunges to saunas to rhythmic breathing to yoga, more working out, more cardio, no screens before bed, cold, dark room, same screen time, magnesium, ashwagandha, L-theanine, chamomile tea, like cutting booze, cutting marijuana. Like literally, did absolutely everything you could imagine. Was not sleeping. At most, I would sleep 4 hours on any given night, chopped up, sometimes 6 hours between sleep cycles. And then I went vegan for a year to try to fix my insomnia, which did not work. It did nothing for me. So I went back to Mediterranean diet, and then I found out about carnivore diet a number of years prior on Rogan's podcast, and I thought it was the stupidest shit ever. I was like, this is dumb. No, who the hell's eating meat all day? That's ridiculous. You need fruits and veggies to be healthy and blah, blah, blah. But then I started reading testimonials, and then I found out about Sean Baker, the other carnivore docs, putting all their patients on carnivore diets that are having complete health turnarounds. And so I said I'd try to give it a shot. So I did. This was in July of 2023. And I said I'd just eat meat and salt and water for 90 days just to see if this would help my insomnia. And so I went 0 carb overnight. For you masochists out there, I would highly recommend it. And for people that don't want to be a masochist, I would highly discourage it, because it is very difficult your first week of going 0 carb overnight. Not a fun experience. Let's just say you spend a lot of time and your best friend is going to be the toilet. So I went 0 carb overnight, dealt with all that the first week. Day 8 on Carnivore, I get my first 8 hours uninterrupted sleep in 2.5 years. I literally woke up, I started crying. I could not believe it was 8 in the morning and I went to bed at midnight. Like, it just was not registering, because I was struggling so bad for over 2 years. And then day 10, mental health skyrocketed. I felt better, clear, more energy, lighter, floaty. I mean, just, it was insane how good I felt after day 10. And then at the end of week 2, my restless legs went away and I stopped snoring. Then week 3, my sense of smell seemed to just like 10x. Like, I was smelling everything. Things that I was asking people and they're like, no, I don't smell that. I'm like smelling it, like whatever it was. And so that was interesting. And my sleep got better every week until after 90 days, my sleep totally fixed itself. And I've been on it ever since. And every time I try to incorporate one food back in here and there, I'll never eat another vegetable again. Just not a chance. I'll have maybe some fruit here and there, tiny amount of fruit, but that's where it is. And yeah, I mean, it's literally changed my life, and I feel amazing on it. And I think there's a lot of BS out there, which people may or may not agree with. But at the end of the day, it works, and I'm healthy, and I feel great, and I'm sleeping, and really that's all that matters. So to each their own. Whatever people want to eat out there, by all means. But if you're struggling with any number of health issues, have personal friends of mine that have had some, maybe stories for another day, but I've literally had insane results going carnivore, reversing diabetes, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, infertility issues, low sperm count in men. My testosterone has gotten higher as I've gotten older, which is crazy. It's almost at the very top of the range last year at 42 years old. So yeah, no reason for me to stop anytime soon, but it is not cheap. so yeah, we gotta continue to make some good money here.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Like I've heard some pretty amazing stories, and I know some people that have tried carnivore for like a month, maybe 2, but to stick to it for like a couple of years is pretty incredible. And to see those results, and even just hearing how you rehabbed yourself as well to the 120,000 reps of whatever. It sounds like when you do something, you go all the way and you do it properly, and you're pretty disciplined. So you're not really wavering there as well too. I am curious though, like how are you getting your fiber in this diet?
Oh, this is also going to be a very unpopular opinion. So fiber is not digested by humans. We don't digest fiber. We don't have multi-chambered stomachs. Why are we eating it? No other animal on the planet eats something they cannot digest. Every animal has a species appropriate diet. Qualities to eucalyptus, pandas eat bamboo, lions and tigers are carnivores. Everyone eats what they're supposed to eat, and everyone seems to be doing fine. We're the sickest population on the planet. It's not even close. And our digestive system, we're very acidic stomach acid, like carnivores. We have a large amount of small fat cells in our bodies, meaning we've evolved to eat a diet high in fat and protein. If you look at stable isotope analysis, 2 million years, our ancestors, we drill into the long bones, checks isotropic levels of nitrogen-15, which is animal fats and proteins that any given species has obviously consumed. And humans, basically across the board, 2 million years, only meat. And the funny thing is, as soon as we started eating fiber and plants at the ag revolution, our brains got smaller, crowded jaws, deformed teeth, bones smaller, we got shorter, and the rampant spread of cavities and non-communicable diseases literally began. You can look this up, don't take my word for it. Across the planet, as soon as the ice age melted and we started relying on crops for caloric intake. And so I think that we're not supposed to eat this, and this is what's causing all these issues in human beings, because you just don't see this in the animal kingdom. And people will argue, well, they don't live as long as us. It's like, well, the ones that don't they still are living their lifespan without these health problems or cavities or anything else that we struggle with. Notice how no animals are going to the dentist. and on top of that, there's animals that live longer than us, right? Some turtles might live longer than us. Those large ones, I can't remember what their official Latin name is, but then you have the Greenland shark. Greenland shark lives between 400 and 500 years, right? Doesn't seem to have any health issues. So I would argue that there's a species appropriate diet for everybody, everybody who shares this wonderful blue dot that we live on. And yeah, why are we eating fiber? We don't digest it. And fiber also binds to, I didn't know this until I went down the rabbit hole. Fiber binds to certain minerals and vitamins, impeding the absorption of certain minerals and vitamins that you would normally get from eating fruits, vegetables, whatever have you. Now you're eating fiber, you can't digest it, just pushing it through your digestive system. And when you have when you eat a diet that's primarily meat, largely meat, or only meat, which I would argue is a species appropriate diet from an evolutionary standpoint, you're absorbing everything. It's the most bioavailable, nutrient dense food that humans can consume. Like, I would ask anybody out there to tell me a food that is more bioavailable, that has more nutrient density than ruminant red meats. I believe there is not one, unless somebody wants to correct me if I'm wrong, which I'm definitely open to being wrong. But it's interesting because I eat, also people think this is crazy, but I eat 5 pounds of meat every day, and I've done it for 3 years. Still don't have a heart attack or gout or colon cancer or whatever else, and I would imagine that's going to continue. That I'm not going to. And you absorb everything. So I eat 5 pounds of meat a day, and let's not go into too much detail, but I go to the washroom less frequently, and it's smaller because I'm absorbing everything, right? Because there's not all this fiber getting in the way, trying to, And I would ask anybody out there to come up with one situation where having more waste is better, literally in any area of life at all. Humans, cars, pollute, like anything. Is producing more waste better in any situation?
Awesome. I think we could have a whole other episode just on that alone.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But I think you've inspired me to go home and just crush a steak and maybe some berries, see what happens. Yeah, Greg, I want to give you the opportunity here as well to talk about your business that you're focused on today, and then we'll wrap it up. But tell us what you're working on. How did you get into it? You have this experience with connected people and events, stuff like that as well too. So I'm sure a lot of that has to play into it. But quickly tell us what you do. How do people get a hold of you? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we are a white glove boutique recruiting firm called Headhunters Canada. We're Canada-wide. We really want to be strategic. We aim to be a strategic recruiting partner for any business that would value our services. We really want to bring the value to companies and finding the right people at the right time. And like I say, to use a basketball analogy, we want to find you the next Kobe or Michael for your team. And how did I get into this? It was a friend of mine who's been a recruiter for a couple of decades. She got me into recruiting a couple of years ago. She just planted the buzz in my ear and said, "Hey, look, you'd be great at this. This is how it works." And I just hit the ground running, onboarded my business partner. Like I mentioned, Veronica brings a lot to the table. She's smarter than me. She's smarter than me. She's brings a lot more expertise and knowledge, more knowledgeable than me because she's been in it for almost a couple decades. So I'll learn a lot from her, and really appreciate having her in my corner and her as a business partner. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Gregg Farineau. Headhunters Canada is our name, our page. I had Instagram, but I recently deleted off my phone. Terrible for mental health. And I believe all my contact info is on LinkedIn. So happy to connect with anybody out there that's looking for a strategic hiring partner. We'd love to help, or at least have a conversation.
Amazing. There's lots to unpack on this episode. I think we really dove into the mental health side of things. Really not judging a book by its cover, because everyone's got a story and how you get there. I love the journey that you're on with some of the self-discovery, the hacking and kind of finding your own path throughout this whole journey as well too, which is super inspiring and pretty incredible. Gregg, thank you for being like vulnerable and open and just sharing, man, because like it's really much appreciated. It's refreshing, and I'm sure, like you said, if you could just affect one person, it's a success, right? Which I have no doubt. Like you affected me, and I'm sure you'll consider the same as well too. So you 2x'd it already, and we haven't even left the episode. Thank you very much, man. I look forward to seeing you around at some of these events. I know you're part of the CCA now as well too, which I'm part of as well. So we'll be seeing at some of those. But again, thank you very much for coming on and just sharing your story. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you guys for having me on and allowing me to speak and share my story. It really means a lot. And I would love to get your story, another day over coffee and whatnot, and learn everything about you and just be be there to listen and just ask questions and be curious about your life and what's going on. So happy to do that whenever you're free, brother.
Yeah, let's make it happen. I'll definitely reach out and we'll make that happen. But take it easy. We'll see you around very soon. And thanks again. We appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Bye, Elise.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Between Two Dots by Intention Media. This podcast is co-hosted by myself, Gilbert Bong, and Hafiz Mita. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review wherever you listen.